I've talked about how there's going to be a free agent frenzy as soon as the floodgates are opened, but perhaps the most talked about WNBA free agent is Sophie Cunningham. I mean, for a few reasons, right? One, you have the expansion draft. So people are wondering what players are protected, and a lot of hypotheticals can go out there about why the Fever won't protect Sophie Cunningham, considering Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, KK Timpson on the rookie deal and under contract, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, a free agent who they could core. That would leave Sophie, if it's 5, perhaps as the odd player out, considering the
moment the words slipped out, they ripped through the WNBA like a thunderstrike. Sophie Cunningham, the league's most hunted free agent, had finally and unmistakably shattered the silence. No more cryptic Kai breadcrumbs, no more guessing games. One commanding declaration instantly rewired the future of the Indiana Fever, a franchise already sitting dead center in basketball's hottest headline. This wasn't gossip. This was a direct blast from the source, closing months of heated debate and jolting every franchise preparing for free agency. A jaw-dropping U-turn that virtually no one truly saw coming, no matter how loud the quiet.
Kelsey Mitchell, a free agent who they could core. That would leave Sophie, if it's 5, perhaps as the odd player out, considering the Fever would gamble maybe on her not being maxed out under the old framework by a new team, one of the expansion teams, and her being a free agent where she could choose where she goes and just winds back up with the Fever. Now, you could argue protect her anyway, just in case, to make sure that that doesn't happen, but that's part of it. And then, of course, the other part of it is how big a star she's become this year and that she plays for the Fever, and who she plays next to. But Sophie, despite sort of
the WNBA rumor machine had been roaring with unprecedented intensity, forecasting a free agency spectacle unlike anything the league had ever witnessed. Once the gates opened, chaos was expected to erupt, and at the center of that brewing cyclone, one name consumed every debate, every prediction, every late-night scenario. Sophie Cunningham. Her elite skill set, electric charisma, and crucial role on a rising powerhouse made her the crown jewel of the market. Every franchise wanted a shot at her, and every fanbase obsessed over her landing spot. The stakes had skyrocketed, the pressure was thick enough to taste, and her decision was primed to reshape the entire offseason narrative.
Part of it is how big a star she's become this year and that she plays for the Fever, and who she plays next to. But Sophie, despite sort of coyly hinting at the idea of flirting with other teams or other possible destinations at the end in her exit interview with the Fever and on her podcast and the like, has seemingly decided not to do that at all anymore and make her intentions very clear about where she plans to play and that she plans to stay. So it is no secret what Sophie Cunningham and where she is leaning. In fact, the Sophie Cunningham Classic.
One of the biggest variables intensifying the speculation was the looming expansion draft. Front offices were scrambling, frantically working to shield their most valuable pieces. But for the Indiana Fever, Sophie's situation existed in a uniquely fragile space. Quiet chatter suggested the Fever might purposely leave her unprotected, a concept that bordered on absurd considering her impact. This wasn't a question of value. It was a matter of roster architecture, contract mechanics, and a high-risk calculation that could either fortify the franchise's future or leave them exposed. The chessboard was set, and the strategy was anything but simple.
And that she plans to stay. So it is no secret what Sophie Cunningham and where she is leaning. In fact, the Sophie Cunningham Classic, her tournament to help boost girls basketball. She was interviewed by ABC 17 in Missouri, and here's the clip that was broadcast and shared here on social media. You can see, and the response from Sophie Cunningham when talking about the Indiana Fever.
Last week, you had a tremendous year. You said, "I'm still me." Yep. How fun was the last year, though, when you look at who you got to play with and be back in the Midwest? Who did I get to play with? No, okay.
The Fever's roster calculus was especially complicated. It was a delicate balancing act of contracts and talent with superstar Caitlin Clark, powerhouse Aaliyah Boston, rookie revelation KK Simpson, and dead-eye shooter Lexi Hull already secured or expected to be. Tough decisions were inevitable. And then came Kelsey Mitchell, a foundational piece entering free agency herself. Trying to protect all of these core assets under expansion draft rules became a strategic nightmare, potentially leaving Sophie exposed despite her massive impact. As the unfortunate odd player out, It was a harsh evaluation and a cold reality for any front office to stomach.
Going down, our team just got closer and closer, but hopefully this next year, we don't know if the CBA, but hopefully we can keep our core together and go get a championship together.
So there you go. Intention is very clear. By the way, Sophie being a good teammate, they're going out of her way to mention Kelsey Mitchell because Kelsey Mitchell's such an integral part of the team. And that's a focus from the Fever to make sure I think she gets the proper attention and credit. But Sophie doing good work there, but also making it very clear that she plans to stay. And she does have that relationship. You know, she was the caddy alongside Lexi Hull, and then her and Caitlin mess around on social media. This was Caitlin. I love
the most compelling hypothetical centered around a calculated gamble. The Fever were betting that Sophie wouldn't receive a max-level offer under the old contract structure from either expansion team. That bold assumption would free up a protection slot while banking on the idea that, after testing the market, she would still elect to return to Indiana. It was a dangerous game of leverage, hinging on a mix of market economics, player loyalty, and a dash of blind faith. Carried the potential for catastrophic blowback, yet the opportunity to secure other critical pieces may have
such an integral part of the team. And that's a focus from the Fever to make sure I think she gets the proper attention and credit. But Sophie doing good work there, but also making it very clear that she plans to stay. And she does have that relationship. You know, she was the caddy alongside Lexi Hull, and then her and Caitlin mess around on social media. This was Caitlin. I love a fresh of breath air because Sophie had done an interview where she said a fresh of breath air instead of a breath of fresh air. Some would argue that Sophie has been a fresh of breath air for the Indiana Fever, and I believe she'll
naturally, a powerful counterargument lingered. Protect her regardless, just in case. The thought of losing a player of Sophie Cunningham's caliber, a bona fide superstar who had propelled the Fever to unprecedented heights, was too high a price to gamble on luck. Why risk giving another team the chance to claim her, especially when her synergy with the existing core was undeniable? The debate raged fiercely among fans and analysts, spotlighting the immense pressure weighing on the Fever's front office. The prudence of risking such a pivotal asset was relentlessly questioned, amplifying the
relationship. You know, she was the caddy alongside Lexi Hull, and then her and Caitlin mess around on social media. This was Caitlin. I love a fresh of breath air because Sophie had done an interview where she said a fresh of breath air instead of a breath of fresh air. Some would argue that Sophie has been a fresh of breath air for the Indiana Fever, and I believe she'll continue to live and breathe with the team.
Interestingly, at the close of last season, Sophie had dropped subtle hints about a different path during her exit interview with the Fever. A few cryptic suggestions, a gentle flirtation with exploring other teams, and whispers of possible destinations sent the rumor mill into overdrive, making her a prime focus of free agency speculation. It was a cautious, natural approach for a player of her stature, keeping every door open. What seemed like tentative contemplation of her future would soon be shattered by her own words. The moment of truth didn't come in a sterile press conference. It arrived at the Sophie Cunningham Classic, her personal tournament designed to elevate girls basketball in Missouri. There, in a heartfelt interview with ABC 17, she made her intentions unmistakably clear. Surrounded by the next generation of players she inspires, in her home state, Sophie's statement carried a raw authenticity. This was Sophie Cunningham, unfiltered and speaking from the heart, far removed from the polished statements of pro sports. When asked about her experience with the Indiana Fever, her response was instant and genuine. "It's been so much fun," she smiled, emphasizing her deep connection to the region. "Just being back in the Midwest, I'm back to my roots, around the people I grew up with, feeling most alive." She called the Indiana Fever a blessing, a declaration that immediately crushed any lingering doubts. Her words painted a vivid picture of contentment, of a true home where she felt